All right, everybody. Sorry I'm so late on this video today. I got home from work a little bit, and then I had some other engagements going on. So I have a giant collection update that I have been wanting to film, and I have been postponing because I was waiting for something else to come in the mail. Long story short, it wound up still not even being shipped at the point of me filming this. So that's pretty obnoxious. So it's late. I'm gonna get down to it. It's about 11 o'clock. We're drinking this Dunda Tequila Watermelon Seltzer. I don't know, man. I've had a couple brewskis already today, so I needed a break. I might get my metal card taken away, not drinking any beer in these videos anymore, but still nice to have you. It's fine. Seltzer is not my favorite. Alright, so this is a buttload of CDs right here. From miscellaneous areas, VCLTs, all this good old stuff. It's actually, because I've mentioned this before, I keep my stuff in chronological order of which I get them. So the first handful of things are from a day that I went to one of my favorite record stores ever, which is now known as Volta Records up in Greenfield, Wisconsin. I met Joe from Joe's Metal Man Cave there, and we hung out, went there. I went to Half Price Books afterward because the record store doesn't have a bathroom, and I found a whole bunch of stuff. So this is from between those two places. So I walk into Half Price Books, and some guy sold a giant collection of odd-shaped case CDs as well as promos of random things, black metal and noise and ambient stuff. So that's a really random thing to just walk into Half Price Books and find. But, you know, I'm a sucker for the A5 Digipack and the DVD case CD. I think they're really, really cool. So I grabbed a handful, a couple of them, a couple other things too. And then, so this is Einsav from, dude, I don't know what I'm trying to pronounce. This is the band Vidard from Germany. I have one of the Vidard albums. This is the second album on this really slick DVD case CD. Some people hate these. I kind of get it because they are particularly inconvenient to store in your collection, but there's just something about it that this feels like the underground to me. You know, this feels like underground black metal when it comes into these CD or these DVD CD cases. But if you're not familiar with Vidard, this is a depressive black metal band from Germany, like I said, and it's really nothing out of the ordinary for the style, other than the fact that it's surprisingly memorable. You know, you usually think of your DSBM bands from the 2000s, and they seem pretty interchangeable, pretty forgettable. This band isn't particularly one of a kind or anything, but they're really solid at what they do, and they have a little bit more of like a songwriting style that you'll actually care to listen to on repeated listens. I have one of their other albums up on the shelf here, so I was really happy to find this randomly in the wild at Half Price Books. So if you guys aren't familiar with this band, check this out. Here's another DVD case CD. This is an absolute blind buy, but this is Shellstorm, Midnight Solson, I don't know. So this was a thing that I didn't really know anything about. I looked it up in the Metal Archives, and it said like folk black metal, CDR printed, really cool. And you know, I got it into the car and I popped it in. There's no metal to be found on here. This is a straight up neo-folk album, and I'm not mad about it because I really love that style. I really get in moods where I'm just listening to, you know, really pretty atmospheric acoustic guitars all done in a really, really well done context. The album cover is really pretty. It looks really good on this DVD case. I think just this in general has a really nice aesthetic to it, but really there's not too much for me to talk about in this one. So if you like, you know, a little bit raw production and a neo-folk, Fjellstorm or whatever will be right up your alley. And last on the odd shaped things I got from Half Price Books. This is a A5 digipack of All Reflections Drained by Zasther. Like I say every time I pick up more Zasther stuff, this is my new favorite or whatever. This is actually really well written album. Scott Connor or Malefek or whatever his name is in the context of Zasther, Melissafeth or something like that. Either way, it doesn't matter. He really progressed well over the years. You know, his songwriting got to be a lot more interesting. His riffing got to be memorable, which really says something coming out of the scene that he did. You know, Nocturnal Poisoning come out in 1999. That's pretty early. He was into the black metal stuff pretty early on. And this is, you know, 2009. So this is 10 years later. I think this is 2009 or 2007. I'm wanting to say it's 2009. Either way, I did a little bit more research for this video several hours ago, and then I went to work and came back, and I don't remember as much as I did. But, you know, it's really good. It's more Zasther. It's just a little bit more of a memorable Zasther. If you haven't heard this one, I know this gets a lot of flack online for whatever reason that may be. I don't know. But if you haven't heard this album and you like Zasther, check out All Reflections Drained. Alright, so we're getting down to the regular stuff here. Handful more from that day I went out and hung out with Joe. This is one of the ones I got at Volta. This is The Unexpected Guest by Demon. I am a new fan of this band. This is an absolutely amazing new wave of British heavy metal band. And this album in particular is their second album from 1982. It's just kind of a little bit more on the hard rock side of the new wave of British heavy metal, but it still has a lot of the, you know, your old school traditional metal. Listening to this scene over the past year and a half has given me a new appreciation for Blue Oyster Cult. And hearing this really makes me think of that quite a bit. The song Don't Break the Circle is probably my favorite one on here, but The Grand Illusion is cool. Have We Been Here Before? Deliver Us From Evil, Total Possession. The Spell is another really great one. It's just really catchy. It's early heavy metal, you know, kind of inspired by the Blue Oyster Cults and your Thin Lizzys, but I think BOC is a big one for this band, and that seems to be a tendency in the new wave of British heavy metal movement. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, and somehow you haven't heard The Uninvited Guest by Demon, I would highly recommend it. Next, this is A Caress of the Void by Evoken. I haven't owned any Evoken at all. So I was really glad to see this in the used bin at Volta Records. This is out on I Hate. And I believe this is 2007. Might be their third or fourth album. It's just a great Death Doom album, dude. If you guys haven't heard this Evoken album in particular, it fits incredibly well into the rest of their catalog. Everything they do is incredibly consistent. This band has tons and tons of interesting styles mixed in with their kind of funeral-esque doom metal. You know, you could argue for some ambience, maybe a little bit of post here and there. I don't know if I'm hearing that just, you know, hearing that ex post facto, or if that's actually something I think truly is there. But either way, it's a really great record. Evoken nails it on the head. Every release I've ever heard has been really good. Also, by the way, I forgot to talk about what we're listening to in the background. This is Heroes Tears by Sortilege. Third and final album from these French legends in traditional metal. Amazing stuff. This is 1984, I want to say. Top tier. Long day at work. Sorry if I'm a little sluggish here. Alright, I picked this guy up. This is Impact and is Imminent by Exodus. This is a Japanese pressing of this album. which you guys know me, I'm not really a pressing guy. It does have an Obi strip, so I will make the effort to actually pull that out and show that to you. But this is the 4th Exodus album from 1990. Let's check this thing out. So first off, here's a little booklet. Nothing too crazy looking on there. But here, I know some guys really get a kick out of these things. I don't particularly know why, but they're kind of cool to look at, I guess. But this album in particular, nothing super special. A little bit more of the Japanese looking stuff on the inside. But you know, I don't know, man. I just can't bring myself to care sometimes when it comes to like a 90s thrash. Not always. That's not always the case by any means, but a lot of the time the 90s were a really rough period for thrash and mainstream metal. And this album isn't bad. It's just really unexciting. It's very whatever, you know. Zetro still is a great vocalist. Gary Holt still has riff after riff every day of the week, but it keeps too much of a mid-pace. I mean, AWOL is on here. Objection Overruled is cool. It kind of feels like a less exciting version of Fabulous Disaster, and I'm a huge Fabulous Disaster fan. So being able to say it sounds like Fabulous Disaster, but like a really lame version of it, is kind of disappointing. But I'm glad to have it anyway. Exodus is still a great band, even when they're not at their high point. Next, this is a blind buy. Beauty, Tears, and the Setting Sun by Endless. This is a Canadian band, death metal band. I picked this up out of the used bin, thinking and looking it up, seeing it said Death Doom, 1999, and from Canada. It's on Pavement Music. I was like, this is gonna be gothy, this is gonna be dweeby. It's really not. It's really an Autopsy influenced Death Doom. Even though, like, look at the album cover. That seriously looks like it would be some really dorky 90s gothy death metal. Sadly it's not, because I was actually really hoping for that. But instead, it's some Autopsy-ish, hardcore influenced doomy-ish death metal. Which, you know, it's cool and all, but the first 4 tracks on this album are pretty meh. It starts getting pretty cool, closer to Smoke and Doomed, which is 3 and 4. But as it continues on, it gets really good. That's when they start dwelling more into the doom side. And, you know, the first couple of songs are a little bit more well-driven, which is whatever, but mid-pace death metal is kind of a nap time snoozer for me. But, you know, I'm glad to have picked it up. I'll revisit it. But this isn't going to get filed in my Death Doom section. It's going to be the regular death metal. Next, this is a cool score. Winter Reich by Immortal Souls. This is a Finnish melodic death metal band. Really cool. I love the album covers. They have a tendency to do a lot of different album covers like this. I found this band looking through used CDs at half-price books, and for whatever reason the band I saw this. It said Immortal Souls, and I was like, you know, that seems vaguely familiar. I should check out what that is. And, you know, it's melodic death metal from 2007. So this album is 4 chapters broken up into a couple different tunes. But the chapters being The Awakening, Reflections of Doom, The Shadow of the Valley of Death, and The Passage. So this is a Christian death metal band as well, which is, you know, you don't hear that all the time. Sometimes you just get some lame, boring, whatever, atheistic, secular, whatever, with it, you know, which is the majority of the case in death metal. So it's a nice change of pace. The album's really good. The music's really well written. There's a lot of influences apart from just mellow death in here, you know. There's a lot of stuff that kind of brings me to the power metal, closer to your Winter Sun and your Children of Bodom, as opposed to your At the Gates and things like that. So if that sounds like your kind of deal, I would definitely check out Immortal Souls. It's really cool release. It's a lot of fun, and you could probably check this out and get it pretty cheap on Discogs. because that style isn't the most lucrative. Next, this is the self-titled album by the band Graveyard from Sweden. This band is something that has really impressed me over the years. I have his Stygian Blues and Innocence and Decadence, and then Lights Out, and I might have one more. I don't particularly remember, but this is like one of the last Graveyard albums I needed to complete my collection. I think I need one more and I have them all. Not very exciting though, which is sad to say. It's like, it feels like a filler track version of those other albums that I already own, which is very odd. I don't remember the chronology of which this came out. It's not in the Metal Archive, so it's kind of hard for me to keep track of. And, you know, I just kind of forgot. But it just feels like they either are too tired from playing the same thing, or they haven't quite realized how good they are at the one thing that they're about to get into. But, you know, I don't know, man. I'm going to keep it around. I'm going to keep listening to it, and hopefully I have some tracks that actually stick out to me like I do in the other records, so it just kind of will really be something I revisit a lot. Graveyard's amazing, though. Their other records are all stellar, so I expect to like this. Excuse me. I expect to wind up liking this at some point. Great. Alright, so we are officially out of the stuff that I got from hanging out with Joe, and we're about to get to some one-off thing that I ordered off Bandcamp via Joe from Joe's Metal Man Cave telling me. He told me that this was available, and I was like, well, I gotta buy that. This is Evanescence Ever Fading by Fall of the Leaf. This is the Aruda Music repress done in 2023 this year, which this needed a reissue so bad it's not even funny. I'm so glad I didn't pull the trigger on Discogs like I was going to. I was close to paying almost $40 for the CD until Joe made me privy to this reissue with shipping. It was approximately 20-ish bucks. Still a little pricey, but whatever with shipping from Spain, and it got here quick. If you're not familiar with this, this is one of the best melodic death metal albums of all time. So this is an obvious influence on a lot of your Minnesota scene, your heavy melodic obsequies and your majesties and things like that. And it should be a huge influence on everything these days, man. This whole kind of Cascadian black metal movement, I feel like, has a root similar to where this band was coming from. This is like incredibly dense and riff-o-rama style of mellow death. So basically, you listen to this whole album all the way through, right? There is no point on the whole record where the lead guitar player isn't playing a lead melody as opposed to like joining in on a riff. It is constant the entire time. I was consciously listening for it. Not once did he deviate from this. And that's amazing. That's crazy that this guy is coming up with enough cool melodies to actually do that, and it doesn't get annoying, and it's impressive enough for me to actually notice it. So that's a really amazing thing. If you're familiar with this record, go back to it and try it out, and like, do you hear what I'm hearing? This guy is just producing riff after riff, lead after lead. It's just constant, and the guy's a machine. I haven't heard the new Fall of the Leaf stuff. I've heard it's pretty good. We'll see. I'll get to it eventually. Fall of the Leaf. Alright, so these next four are from what was my local record store before I moved up to where I do now, but I stopped in there when I was back in town once, and I grabbed a couple of goodies. So first thing, I got 2 proto metal albums and 2 power metal albums. I got Live and Dangerous by Thin Lizzy. I've been wanting to get really into Thin Lizzy, and this is a great spot for it. If you don't have Live and Dangerous, amazing live album, which, you know, I assume it's probably not all that live. Maybe the basis of it is live, but I don't think it's all that live. But, you know, this has amazing stuff. They open up with Jailbreak. They play Southbound. They play Rosalie. Dancing in the Moonlight. It's Caught Me in the Spotlight. Johnny the Fox. Cowboy Song, amazing classic song. Suicide, Shalala, Baby Drives Me Crazy. It's a great, great, representation of late 70s, which is 1978 era of Thin Lizzy. It's seriously so good. It's fun, and it's made me want to dive more and more into their catalog every chance I really get, which I feel like I don't get a lot of opportunities. You think this is a huge band, Thin Lizzy's gargantuan, be able to run into their CDs anywhere, every day of the week. It's kind of hard to actually get a hold of them. I'm genuinely surprised. I've been looking for a copy of Jailbreak for a while, and I just didn't want to do it online because I figure, I'll find it eventually. It's been kind of hard. But whatever. This is a great score. I'm glad to have it. I'm not a huge live album guy, but whatever. Next, two from some classic stuff. This is Glory to the Brave and Threshold by Hammerfall. Some of Sweden's finest. Sweden's finest, dude. So this is the debut Hammerfall album. This is a 2001 repress. I believe the album came out in 97, maybe 99. And then this is a mid-era album, I think 2006. They're consistently both really, really good. If you're not super familiar with Hammerfall, they do a whole lot of your speed metal and traditional metal mixed into their power metal. Their power metal's fun, it's epic, it's driven, and it's fast, but it has a whole lot of your traditional metal into it. This debut ends with a cover of Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. It's one of the last 3 bonus tracks, and they nail it. And from what I understand, the people in the band all switch instruments and played that cover, which is extra fun. And obviously everybody knows the correlation with the band Crystal Age from Sweden. So if you guys haven't heard of Hammerfall, somehow, I don't know how you could possibly not have heard of Hammerfall at this point, but it's great stuff, man. And the last thing I got from my local shop being Vinyl Frontier, this is the New York Dolls, Too Much, Too Soon. I've heard this band had a lot of influence on glam and punk, and I see a lot more of the punk than I do the glam. This is 1974. This is their second full-length album, and it's cool. I don't know, there was nothing that really grabbed me about this quite yet. I could see how this album or this band would have a huge influence between this band, MC5, and like Iggy and the Stooges on the kind of creation of punk rock in general. And it's good. They do a really good job with it. You get this album cover is great. Just look at all the faces. You kind of see where the Ramones are getting their ideas from. These guys seem like they're influenced by the Rolling Stones, but keep it a little bit more like, I don't know, weird. This is a hard thing to describe for me. I'm not used to describing stuff that isn't metal or whatever. But yeah, New York Dolls. Next. Alright, so last weekend I went to a awesome trip, my buddy's bachelor party, and on the way up I stopped at a record store I'm particularly fond of in Madison, Wisconsin, and I grabbed a good handful of things. So you'll see some other things for there. You see right over my shoulder a little sneak preview of what else is to come. But yeah, the first thing I got out of this here is going to be a weirdly available, unexpectedly available Brutal Records repress of Serpent Temptation by Incubus. Dude, you gotta have this. Any respectable death metal collection needs to have Serpent Temptation in it, and this is just so good. There are so many times where you make the steak face and you just, well, this is going on, dude. The riffs are just captivating for being so mouth-breathing, so feral, and so just generally troggy and simple. It just really hits hard. It hits hard on the thrash side of things. It's got a great death metal feel, but with a ton of the thrash metal musicality to it. This song, Sadistic Sinner, Serpent Temptation, Blaspheming Prophets, Underground Killer, the whole album is perfect. This will forever be one of those records I think of the drive up to this event that I was going to. This is going to be there. All these records that are right here, I think, are going to have that association with them, which is going to, you know, make them a little bit more powerful for me in my listening. So if you haven't heard this brilliant death thrash album, one of the greatest to come out of Louisiana, check out Incubus Serpent Temptation. Next, I knew about this album for a while, and I was not expecting to see this in a while. But this is Un Viol Derici by Forts in the Mormi, or something like that. None of that was correct, so I apologize. It's a little bit easier to find. You could look up the side project of the guitar player False Raros, and this is it. This is a really cool neo-folk project, a really pretty, nice, atmospheric kind of thing going on. So my buddy has the LP of this. He picked it up when we saw Falls Raros live 2017, I think it was. Yeah, about 6 years ago at this point. And yeah, got it signed. I heard it like once or twice around then, and then kind of shelved it in my mind. You know, I didn't think about it for a long time. But nonetheless, it's made its return, and now it is officially part of the collection. Very excited about that, not gonna lie. It's gonna be very cool to be able to revisit this. It's very slow. It takes a while to build up. There's a lot of, you know, addition of, I don't know if they're keyboards or actual accordions or maybe some weird melodicas. I don't really know, but this is a great, great record. If you guys haven't heard this, go check this out. Next, Supreme Degradation by Ossuary. So I was talking to the guy behind the counter at the record store, and I was like, how's that new Ossuary? And me not realizing that this is a couple years old already. And he's like, you know, it's good, but, you know, I'm the drummer in that band, so like it might be a little biased or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go grab it then anyway right now. So I go ahead and pick this thing up, and I talk to the guy behind the counter. His name's Nick, by the way, this guy. And I had him sign the disc. You can't really see it all that well, but it's up here. You kind of see it a little. This is a demo comp. Their first two demos from 2018 and 2019, or 2019 and 2020. And then there's this is the compilation of the whole discography, basically, thus far. Surprisingly, this is selling for way too much money on Discogs for being available at a record store. You know, this is like a $30-40 CD on Discogs these days, which is ridiculous. You know, I feel like that's been happening to me a lot lately. You picking stuff up and I wind up finding it for a normal price, and then I look it up and it's way more than it should be. But this is a really cool, super groovy blackened death metal. It really rides heavy on the groovy doom side of things, which, if that sounds interesting to you, go check this guy out. I'm going to start cutting myself off a little bit here because I am yakking way too much for how much I still have to look through. I'm a little over halfway, so. Next, this is Ricochet by Tangerine Dream. I was talking to Brian Arkham about this band, and then it just kind of kept in my brain. This is one of their albums from 1975. This is a great kind of proto-synth style band, you know, proto-ambient, I guess, big influence on what would become Dungeon Synth. This is really proggy keyboard music is the gist of what I'm saying. This is 2 long tracks, and it's like a whole big atmospheric journey. There's guitars and the occasional bit of drums too. I don't recall there being any vocals on this album in particular, but it's nonetheless, dude, this is a really cool synthy atmospheric record. It's really tranquil, it's really transportative, it's really good. Check out Tangerine Dream if you have not. Next, I think the only 2023 album I have in this, this is Threads of Unknowing by the Old Void Ceremony. Great album. I don't want to talk too much about this because this is definitely getting mentioned in the end of the year list, but this is some of the best proggy Black Death I've heard in a while. If you're kind of mixing your behind creation with a little bit of black metal and make it just a little bit more listenable for the average person. I love Beyond Creation, but I can see why that is a hard thing to stomach for the average listener. Go check out Void Ceremony if that sounds like a good time. Here's a traditional metal album. This is Fired Out Under by Riot. I already have this album on vinyl, but you know, I saw this in the used bin and I was like, alright, whatever. I'm bringing it home. I believe this to be the last album with Guy Speranza on vocals. It might be, or it might be close to it, not necessarily the last one. Excuse me, I've been awake too long. But this is a great kind of hard rockin' traditional metal album with lots of AC/DC influence. Riot's fun. Next, a Hammerheart repress of Spheres by Pestilence. This is a classic record, you know, this is usually right before, this is the record of which most people are already checked out of the Pestilence catalog from. And I kind of get it. I really do kind of get it, but I don't know if I agree quite yet. But I'm also not in complete agreement that this is a brilliant, brilliant album. It's really musically interesting, but it seems to lack a grasping force to it. You know, there's nothing gravitational pulling you into this one. But, you know, it's a good record. It's fun, but it's weird. It seems a little try-hardy. It seems like a farce. You know, it seems like they want to be more highbrow than they actually are, you know. It seems like a little bit of lipstick on a pig kind of action, you know. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna run a marathon, but I'm gonna do it in Walmart gym shoes. I don't know. It's kind of a stupid analogy, but it's kind of what popped into my head as the first thing that I thought of. But you know, it's a good record. It's interesting. I'll give it a little bit more leniency because it is Pestilence, and I will definitely be revisiting it because I would much prefer to be able to gush about this album because it is Pestilence. So, Spheres, classic. Gotta love Stained Glass, man. This is a great Judas Priest album. White Heat, Red Hot is a classic tune. Invader, top tier. Saints in Hell, Savage. Oh, dude. Exciter, come on now. Beyond the Realms of Death, one of the greatest heavy metal albums of heavy metal songs of all time. Absolutely top tier when it comes to that. And I just couldn't not own this any longer. I haven't owned this ever. So the fact that that's the case, unacceptable. Had to grab it. Judas Priest. Next. I don't have any CDs from this band besides this one. I have the album before this on LP though. This is St. Vitus with 5 or V, if you want to call it that. I'm still not particularly sold on the whole St. Vitus style quite yet. I like it a lot, but it really doesn't differentiate itself from a lot of these other doom bands for me. I'll revisit it some more, but it just hasn't caught me quite yet, you know. Living Backwards is a good song. I Bleed Black is whatever, but Jack Frost is interesting. Angry Man. I hear people talk about the vocalist from St. Vitus, which RIP, the bass player, just passed away, I think, yesterday or today. I hear a lot of people talking like this is like auditory, like issues with your brain, you know. And I don't know. It just seems like a pentagrammy doom that's not as particularly memorable as compared to Pentagram. But whatever. I'll check it out again when I'm in this mood. Next, Black Rose, Thin Lizzy. Had to own it. Got that live album. Was super impressed and was like, alright, I'm hunting for as much Thin Lizzy as I could possibly get once I get around to getting to a record store. And here I am with another one. This is great. Toughest Street in Town is a classic song. Do Anything You Want To. Roizen Duba, which is Black Rose. Gotta Give It Up. Get Out of Here. It's just great. It's classic. It's Thin Lizzy. It's everything you need it to be. And this is the last 2 albums that I got from this record store. This is Event Horizon X with Along Came the Winter. This is a promo copy of this album. I believe this to be the 2nd album by Hellenic power metal band. It's just actually a solo project. And when this album gets moving, you can really tell when it's a drum machine. Like, it's unquestionable. But, you know, the music's really interesting. The vocals kind of remind me of Mark from Manila Road, which is not something you hear all the time, and that's not necessarily a positive statement a lot of the time. But it really works for me, man. I like that guy's vocal style a lot. Mark Shelton makes it a little bit more of an epic and well-composed, maybe borderline melodic symphonic power metal. Check out Event Horizon X. Last one I got from that record store, self-titled Skid Row. Nothing to say, dude. You know this one. Big Guns is a great opening track. This one sprung them to the top. Sweet Little Sister's the big hit on this one. But Making a Mess, I Remember You, Piece of Me, 18 in Life. Youth Gone Wild, I feel like, is a big one for this band as well. It's just corny, 1989, you know, glam grasping at straws, trying to stay afloat. Skid Row did pretty good. They got they're a little heavier, you know. They're more on that Guns N' Roses wavelength as opposed to your Poison wavelength. Skid Row. Alright, and then this last one is from my guy Scott over at No Solutions channel, which he'll be linked up in the description. Guy's great. He has a great channel. He does tons and tons of cool stuff. I made a comment in a video about having an interest in one of these bands, and he wound up sending me 2 of their albums, along with a couple other random things in a VCLT package. So Scott, you the man. You'll be linked up. Expect something coming back your way, whether you like it or not. First thing he sent me is probably my favorite thing of the bunch. This is Fomori and Vietir. This is a split of 2 Canadian black metal bands. Fioratori or whatever has this in a demo out, and then Vietir exists exclusively on this split, which is very, very cool. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. So I was trying to figure out where I recognize some riff from in here, and I was like, dude, I definitely know what this is. And I'm like, it sounds kind of Burzum-y, it sounds kind of Satyricon-y, but Vietir does a Temenzor cover on here, which is a really random, obscure thing for me to be recognizing, I believe. But it's one of the tracks off of Horizons, which is, it's White Thunder Roars. Like I said, this is 2 Canadian bands, and I wonder if any of the members cross over in each band. Maybe this is a side project trying to get a little bit more attention. But the Temenzor cover Vietir does is great. They're the much better side of these 2. They get more of that Celtic kind of pagan black metal with a little bit of folky influence. The first band, Fomori, whatever, is cool, but it reminds me of a demo era of Graveland, which, you know, there's Polish black metal all over this split, but their version of Polish black metal is nothing out of the ordinary. You know, you're getting a ton of your kind of Baltic styles on here, and it's great. Seriously, I was really impressed with this, especially being on blackmetal.com. Not usually a good sign, but you know, like I was talking to Scott earlier, I feel like 1 out of 5 records on blackmetal.com are actually worth owning, and this is like 4 of them. This is like 4 out of the 5 that are amazing. Great split. I would recommend this every day of the week, every time. Here's the original targets of him sending me some stuff. This is Ava in Fury. This is Blood of Vectuous and Burdens. Really cool Portuguese band. Look at these weird rounded off digipacks. So this is, I believe, the first album, and this is the 3rd album. This is a gothic doom metal band from Portugal, which they both have Blasphemer from X Mayhem in there, currently still in Or Noir, and his wife is the singer. It's a very, very, very slow, downtrodden kind of stuff, man. This album in particular here, I think is substantially better. Burden, it's a lot heavier, it's more cohesive. In this one, it feels like they're getting a little ahead of themselves. You know, it seems like they're getting a little bored, and thanks, babe. It's not as interesting as this one. I don't know, that's about all I can say for it. I really dug these a lot, though. They're definitely sticking around. They're going in the doomy, death, gothic area of my CD shelf, even though there's not really much death at all. At all. But I'm very glad to have these, so thank you, Scott. Alright, next. This here is Offermod Tiemchu, or something like that. I've heard of this band in passing, and I listened to it, and it's pretty much straightforward black metal. There's nothing particularly nuts about this band, nothing particularly crazy. This just isn't a style that I spend time with these days, but, you know, I'll give it some more spins. Maybe it'll grow on me. I just don't see myself listening to this as much as I feel like I could be, being somebody who's kind of already burnt themselves out on really overly blasty black metal like 1349 and a lot of the Gorgoroth catalog and things like that, Urge Hall and Shuther and all these bands. This fits along with that a little bit, maybe a little bit more artsy than Urge Hall and Shuther, because, you know, those bands are like the auditory equivalent of breathing really heavily out of your mouth. But, you know, it's cool. Offermod. Alright, this is another one of my favorites out of this little stack from Scott. This is the Maledict with the album Dread. This is top tier Australian death doom. I really like when this band starts doing clean vocals in particular. That really gets me excited on this one. It really fits well. This is really Immolation influenced death doom. I picked up tons of Immolation, and maybe Steve Tucker era Morbid Angel all over this. So if, you know, mixing your doomy death metal with some clean vocals with your Immolation, mid-air Immolation, your mid-air Morbid Angel, it's all sludgy. But this guy's vocals, the harsh vocals, really reminded me of Raw Stolen as well. So if that sounds interesting, check this out. Next, this is Relic with Spiraling Infinite Chaos. I don't particularly remember where this band is from, but this is on Horror Praying Gore Death Productions out of Philadelphia. So this is a thrash metal band. I want to say that they're American. They've been around for a long time, and then they didn't put out an album until 2015, so I don't know if that really counts of them being around for all this time. But it's more kind of thrashy death metal in vein of maybe Vader. A little more thrashy than Vader as opposed to being so deathy. It's interesting. I don't know, man. I'm really not sold on the style of Vader and such. But yeah, Relic. And next, and finally, it's actually the last one here. I don't know, he must have not had the backing for this disc, which is fine and dandy. I appreciate it anyway. This is The Lion's Daughter with Existence is Horror. This is a progressive blackened sludge band from Missouri, if I remember correctly. And sludge metal is not my thing. I put this on wanting to love it, and then all the sludginess came on, and then I heard the walkie-talkie effect on the vocals, and that is a #1 no-no. There are a few bands that can get away with that for me, being Leviathan is one of them. Zaster does it a little too. That really irks the crap out of me, and there's a ton of that. On top of being sludge, it just wasn't for me. But I do appreciate the effort, man. I can't say thank you enough, Scott, for sending me this cool stuff. I'm here going to give you the honest thought as to what I think about it and actuality, as opposed to just, you know, telling you I love everything you sent me. I like the majority of it, but this is not hitting the spot for me. It'll get passed along, though. The Lion's Daughter. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for sitting in with me on this 45-minute video. It's friggin' ridiculous. So I'm going to shut my filthy trap and go to bed. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Keep it greasy.